There's a story you've been told, a myth. It's the one about the founder, the solitary genius in a garage, the one who saw a future nobody else could, who worked 80-hour weeks fueled by nothing but cold pizza and a blinding vision. And then, one day, poof, they emerged, fully formed, onto the cover of a magazine, a billionaire. A legend. That story is a lie. It's a clean, simple, and comfortable lie. It leaves out the blood. It leaves out the terror. It leaves out the phone calls that didn't get returned, the maxed out credit cards, and the suffocating feeling in the middle of the night that you've made a catastrophic mistake, that you've ruined not just your life, but the lives of people who believed in you. This is about the real story. Welcome. I'm so glad you're here. We are about to walk the unexpected paths. The paths carved out not by superheroes, but by mortal people. People who felt fear and did it anyway. People who built their safety nets while they were falling. People who discovered that the most valuable thing they would ever build wasn't a company. It was themselves. These are the stories of how they built this. And hidden within them, you just might find the blueprint for how you will build yours. Chapter 1. The Parachute and the Leap. Some opportunities feel less like a knock at the door and more like a house fire. You either jump out the window or you burn. But the truth is, you don't have to jump without a parachute. You just have to be willing to sew it on the way down. Think about Jim Koch in 1984. Picture him. He's a big shot management consultant. He wears an expensive suit. He sits in boardrooms with polished mahogany tables. He's on a perfect, predictable track to becoming the kind of rich where your children's children never have to worry about money. Ever. Life was great. Except it wasn't. There was a nagging feeling, a ghost in the machine, a persistent memory of his family's business, of European-style craft beer, a flavor, a passion that he knew was missing from the American market. There was a gap, a chasm, and it was calling his name. When he told his family he was thinking of leaving his job, they were horrified. Horrified. To them, he was throwing away a winning lottery ticket. For what? For beer? But for Jim, the choice was becoming brutally clear. Leaving his job was scary. Of course it was. But the thought of staying? The thought of being an old man sitting in a leather chair, haunted by the bitterness of a chance not taken? That was dangerous. That was a poison he refused to drink. So he jumped. He founded the Boston Beer Company. And today, regret isn't a word in his vocabulary. In 2019 alone, that company pulled in over $1.3 billion in revenue. Let that sink in. That's the kind of number that makes you want to leap, to follow your own passion right now. And you should. Go ahead. But don't you dare jump without a parachute. For Damon John, the founder of the hip-hop apparel empire FUBU, that parachute smelled like Cheddar Bay biscuits. His parachute was a job waiting tables at a Red Lobster in Queens, New York. Imagine the disconnect. By day, he's building a brand that is defining a culture. He's at the heart of a movement. But when the sun goes down, he's putting on that uniform. He's refilling drinks and clearing plates. He knows that no matter how popular the FUBU brand gets, he is never more than a few bad weeks away from total insolvency. That job wasn't glamorous. It was the opposite of the dream. But it kept the wolves from the door. It paid the bills. It was the anchor that allowed the dream to grow. It made FUBU possible. And then, 6 long years after FUBU was founded, the moment came. Damon's mother, his first believer, took out a $2,000 classified ad in the New York Times. $2,000. That was an entire month's salary from Red Lobster. A month of spilled drinks and tired feet, all gambled on a few lines of text. That ad led to a multi-million-dollar round of financing. And with that investment finally in the bank, Damon John could hang up his apron. He could walk away from the Red Lobster for the last time and devote every single waking hour to his dream. His parachute had done its job. It had gotten him safely to the ground. Now he was ready to build his kingdom. Chapter 2. Pause. The Founder's Marriage. Damon John's mother placing that ad wasn't just a lucky break. It was proof of a fundamental law of the universe. You cannot do this alone. Let me say that again. You cannot do this alone. Startups don't do well on their own. We are social animals. We live in groups. We work in teams. An idea whispered in a garage is just a whisper, but an idea shared, debated, and built upon by people who love you, by your family, your friends, and most importantly, your co-founder, that idea can change the world. The entrepreneurial road is too hard. It is a lonely, brutal path filled with far more crushing lows than soaring highs. Even the titans you read about, the Zuckerbergs, the Musks, the Bezoses, they all started their companies with partners. So should you. This is the non-negotiable truth. Who you pick as your co-founder is one of the most important decisions you will ever make. It can be the difference between failure and a legacy. So how do you choose? You look for someone who completes you, not in a romantic sense, but in a practical one. You look for someone who has the skills you lack. When Jen Rubio, a fashion marketing executive, had the idea for a new kind of luggage in 2015, she knew how to make it cool. She knew how to build the brand, tell the story, and make people desire it. But she didn't need another marketer. She needed someone who could actually get the thing built. That person was Steph Corey, a supply chain specialist. Jen saw the aesthetic. Steph saw the logistics. Together, they were a complete picture. And together, they raised $2.5 million for their startup away before their first line of suitcases had even been manufactured. Think about that. They sold the promise because they had the complete team to deliver it. Now, you should know that most startups don't succeed that fast. Most stories look a lot more like the story of Eric Ryan and Adam Lowry. They were the founders of Method cleaning products. For them, the payoff came much, much later. It took a full year from the day they founded the company for their products to land on the shelves of Target. And that year was the ramen noodle year. They lived together in the same room. They stayed up until all hours of the night working, fueled by instant noodles. They maxed out every single one of their credit cards. They bickered. Oh, they bickered. But they also laughed. And more than anything, they trusted each other. They were in the trenches together. This relationship, this bond forged in exhaustion and cheap carbohydrates, that is the foundation of a solid business. It's a founder's marriage. Of course, you can't start a business with just friendship. You need money. But before you polish your pitch deck and march off to Sand Hill Road to beg professional investors, look closer to home. Look to your nearest and dearest. Swallow your pride and ask them for money. It will be humbling. They will ask you hard questions. Answer every single one. Explain why your idea can't lose. Do it again and again and again. By the time you get really good at selling your company to the people who know you best, you'll probably have some cash to work with. And here's the secret power of that money. It's not yours. It belongs to people you love, people you cannot bear to let down. You will work twice as hard to make their investment worthwhile. Their faith in you becomes your fuel. End of chapter. Chapter 3. The Countertop Coup. So you did it. You scored a check for $1,500 from your Aunt Karen. Your co-founder's sister, the investment banker, kicked in a little more. It's a start. You should be proud. But let's be honest, it's not enough. Not even close. And no offense, but you probably don't have all the experience, all the mentors, or all the support you truly need. You feel like a tiny boat in a vast, stormy ocean. There is no need to throw in the towel.
This just means you'll have to get crafty. You'll have to be a gorilla. As an entrepreneur, it is your job to position your brand creatively. You have to understand, knocking on the front door of a crowded marketplace and politely asking for a seat at the table, that's not how it works. You'll be ignored. Just ask Manoj Bhargava, the founder of 5-Hour Energy Shots. When he created his product, he was facing titans. Big Soda wasn't about to let some upstart compete with them, especially not with a product that actually did what it claimed to do. Every time Manoj walked into a convenience store, his heart sank. He saw the refrigerators, stocked floor to ceiling, a wall of brightly colored cans. Energy drinks from brands with billion-dollar marketing budgets. How could he possibly compete with that? He couldn't pound the door down, so he snuck around the side. He had a trick up his sleeve. Instead of going toe-to-toe with the heavyweight 16-ounce cans, he shrank his drink. He shrunk it all the way down to a tiny 2-ounce shot. This wasn't just a design choice. It was a strategic masterstroke. That new petite size meant that 5-Hour Energy didn't need fridge space. It could be sold right off the store's countertop, sitting there right next to the disposable lighters and the Slim Jims. An impulse buy. A tiny solution to a huge problem, exhaustion. It worked. 6 months after launch, Manoj Bhargava was selling 10,000 bottles a week. He didn't fight the giants. He danced around them. He staged a countertop coup. You can get eyes on your brand in other ways, too. You can pitch to the tastemakers, the people who decide what's cool. Steph Curry and Jen Rubio of Away did this brilliantly. Before they even had a suitcase to sell, they hired a public relations firm with one mission: get their luggage into the pages of Vogue. They weren't just selling a bag. They were selling an identity, a lifestyle. And it worked. They completely sold out their first production run based on the buzz alone. But the most powerful way to get attention, the holy grail, is to get normal people talking. Mark Zuckerberg, the CEO of Facebook, said it best: nothing influences people more than a recommendation from a trusted friend. That kind of buzz, the kind that makes someone pick up their phone and text a friend, "You've got to try this," that is harder to come by. But it's not magic. There's a way to earn it. And the way you do that is to build a great product. A product so good, so useful, so delightful that people can't help but recommend it. But even with a great product, you'll still have hurdles to overcome. Giant, terrifying hurdles. We'll talk about those next. End of chapter. Pause 3 seconds. Chapter 4. The Trough of Sorrow. So far, this all sounds manageable, right? You start a company with your best friend, you get some money from Aunt Karen, you survive the ramen noodle years, and the next thing you know, you're Elon Musk. That is absolutely not how it works. Entrepreneurship is far, far harder than it is easy. It is an unnatural state for most human beings. But there is one point in the journey, one specific phase, where it is harder than all the others. It's the point where the investors stop calling you back. It's when your sales chart flatlines. It's when the early excitement has faded and all you're left with is the cold, hard reality that maybe this isn't working. The uncertainty becomes a physical weight. It's too much. This place has a name. The co-founder of Y Combinator, Paul Graham, calls it the Trough of Sorrow. It is a silent valley of despair, and most entrepreneurs don't make it through. They die there. Their dreams die there. So what's the trick to surviving it? It's brutally simple. You just keep going. You have to zoom out. You have to pull your head out of the day-to-day weeds, the minutia of your startup's problems, and look again at the big picture, the original vision. You have to find a way to hope that one last push, just one more push, will get you through to the other side. For many founders trapped in the trough of sorrow, they see only one way out: investment. They think of a big check from a venture capitalist as the end game, the moment they can finally take a reasonable salary, the moment they can finally breathe. But that money comes at a great cost. Let's be clear about what venture capitalists do. They exist for one reason: to take as much of your precious company as they can in exchange for their money. That is their job. And signing their term sheet is only the beginning of your relationship. Just because you get VC money doesn't mean you're safe. And more importantly, not getting their attention doesn't mean your business is bad or doomed. VCs know money. But they don't know your business better than you do. Sometimes they don't even know your industry. Your job is not to please VCs. Your job is to build a great product and sell it to customers. If you do that well enough for long enough, the money will come. Staying focused on your product doesn't mean putting on blinders. It means being open, being realistic about the opportunities that are right in front of your face, opportunities you might be ignoring. Look at Stacy Madison and her then boyfriend, Mark Andrus. They were running a successful sandwich cart business in Boston. To keep the hungry people in line happy, they started passing out free baked pita chips. And a funny thing happened. People went wild for the chips. They started asking for the chips more than the sandwiches. They were there for the free thing. This is the moment most people quit. Are you most people? No, because Stacy and Mark saw it. They had the humility to see it. In 1998, they made a terrifying choice. They pivoted. They burned the boats on their sandwich cart to sell only the chips. By 2006, Stacy's Pita Chips was doing $65 million in revenue. It was later acquired by PepsiCo. Giving up on your original idea takes humility, a willingness to admit you were wrong. And as we're about to see, that same humility is the only thing that can save you when a real crisis hits. End of chapter. Pause. Chapter 5. The Recall. No one is immune to catastrophe. I don't care how well your company is doing. In fact, the more successful you become, the more risk you take on. It's a paradox. No matter how careful you are, something deeply unpleasant is bound to happen. And whether it's a mistake you made or a random act of God, as the founder, you are going to have to deal with the fallout. Let's go back to 1981. Tylenol, as a brand, accounted for nearly 20% of the total profits of its parent company, Johnson & Johnson. Both brands were more than thriving. They were American institutions, trusted. Then, in 1982, the unthinkable happened. Someone in Chicago began tampering with Tylenol bottles on store shelves, lacing the capsules with cyanide. 7 people died. It was an absolute world-ending disaster for Johnson & Johnson. Tylenol sales didn't just drop, they vanished overnight. Public trust evaporated. The brand was poison, literally. But what happened next was a masterwork in crisis response, a lesson so profound it is still taught in business schools today. It was a lesson in shelving your pride. Success in the face of crisis means your ego has to die. Back in the early 1980s, no product, aside from cars, had ever been recalled on a national scale. It just wasn't done. The FDA was against the idea. The FBI was against the idea when the Johnson & Johnson CEO, James Burke, floated it. But Burke understood something they didn't. He humbly, painfully recognized his responsibility. Not to his shareholders, not to his board, but to the people. The people who trusted his company with their health, with their families. He knew that their trust was the only asset that truly mattered. So he made the decision, a decision that would echo for decades. He decided to recall every single Tylenol capsule on every single shelf in America. Over $31 million. And that wasn't all. The product would only relaunch with new tamper-proof packaging. The whole recall cost the company upwards of $100 million.
But Burke's decisive, transparent, humble action was priceless. Within 2 months, Johnson & Johnson's stock price had returned to its pre-crisis high. By the end of the next year, Tylenol had recaptured nearly all of the pain reliever market.
Good leadership can save a business when catastrophe strikes from the outside. But what happens when the catastrophe is inside, when the leaders themselves are the problem? Remember the Method founders, Eric Ryan and Adam Lowry, the ones in the founders' marriage bickering over ramen? After they launched a new product line in 2008 that failed to take off, the partners turned on each other. The stress fractured their relationship. Eric said they were at each other's throats for years. The partnership, the very soul of the company, was in serious jeopardy. But they were more committed to their broader purpose than they were to their petty feud. Their mission was bigger than their egos. And so, with immense patience and sensitivity, they did the hard work. They talked. They listened. They repaired the trust. They made it through the rough patch. And in 2012, they sold Method for an undisclosed and undoubtedly massive sum. End of Chapter 4. Pause. 3 seconds. Chapter 6. The armor. Let me tell you about the scariest part of this whole thing. It is not what you think. It's not failure. Actually, it's success. This might sound crazy, but think about it. If you're constantly striving for something, fighting for survival every day, at least you have that clear vision to work toward. Every day is a battle, so you're not thinking about the long game. But once you achieve success, once you've arrived, a whole new set of fears emerge. Continuity, legacy. What does this all mean? If you want to build a company that stands the test of time, you have to return to the very beginning, to the impulse that got you started in the first place, whatever it was. Because real success in business isn't purely about profit. It's about purpose. The key message is this: mission-first businesses find success more easily. And that mission isn't something you figure out after you get rich. You need it from day one. Mission-first companies fare better in the lean times, and they fare better once they've succeeded. Why? Because their founders and their employees are motivated by something more durable than money. They are less likely to jump ship when the waters get rough. Jen Hyman had plenty of reasons to quit her startup, Rent the Runway. The online designer rental service was a brilliant idea, but the process of funding it was exhausting and demoralizing. She endured a constant barrage of sexism and chauvinism from the male venture capitalists she was pitching to. Imagine this. She's in a meeting at a prestigious VC firm. She's poured her heart and soul into her numbers, her deck, her vision. And at the end, a partner takes her hand, pats it, and says, "This is so adorable. You're going to get to wear such pretty dresses. This must be so fun for you." Anyone would be justified in feeling infuriated, in walking out. But Jen Hyman didn't let herself get distracted by anger. She wasn't meeting with these men to get rich. She was doing it because she believed to her core in her company's purpose, to make women feel powerful and confident, to democratize fashion. That mission was her armor. It protected her against all the sexism, all the negativity, all the disappointment, and the uncertainty. And in the end, that armor helped Rent the Runway hit a $1 billion valuation in 2019. Staying true to your mission makes your decisions simpler. When the choices and opportunities start swirling around you, your values become your compass. They remind you of the business you're in and why you're in it. There is incredible power in being authentically yourself. And the faster you can isolate your mission, the one true thing you are fighting for, the faster you will find the success you deserve. So I'll ask you this. If every investor said no tomorrow, what is the one belief that would force you to continue? That is your mission. We've traveled a long road together. We stood with Jim Koch as he traded a safe future for a passionate one. We bussed tables with Damon John at Red Lobster, feeling the weight of his parachute. We navigated the founder's marriage with the creators of Method, and we snuck in the side door with 5-hour energy. We descended into the trough of sorrow, that silent valley of despair, and we stood in the fire with James Burke as he made the $100 million decision to save the soul of his company. We saw that the entrepreneurial journey is not a straight line up. It is a series of falls and recoveries and moments of grace. Starting your own company is not a job. It is an all-consuming process that will demand everything from you. It has the potential to break you, but it also has the potential to change your life, to give it a meaning you never thought possible.
Because if you succeed, and I don't just mean financially, you won't just be rich. You'll have found your purpose. You'll have found yourself. The stories we've shared, they aren't just case studies. They are modern myths. They show us what is possible when an ordinary person is possessed by an extraordinary idea and finds the courage to see it through. Your idea is waiting. Your path is waiting. It will be harder than you can possibly imagine, but the reward is greater than you can dream. The world doesn't need another business. It needs your myth. Now, go build it.